In this podcast, we would be talking to Anjani Kumar Singh, the Director General of Bihar Museum and the Chief Advisor to the Chief Minister of Bihar. I've known Anjani ji for a long time and have been following his work and have been a great admirer of what he has done with this Bihar Museum, which is state-of-the-art museum, and the biennial in its second edition is happening from August 7th to December 31st. And Outlook has partnered with the Bihar Museum to start an important discourse on museums as sites of memory and, this whole politics of representation and collective memory and individual memory and also this, these historical artifacts and other histories that are in the museum as, counters to fake news and, in the post-truth world. And as a media house, we are always facing this challenge to kind of, how to write news, how to go about news. And I think the role of media houses also have changed. And it's important to bring these discourses into the mainstream by kind of talking about places that we all visit. These are public places, and new kinds of museums have come up. Museums have evolved. Museums have kind of come into their being, and world over there's this whole movement talking about how the future of museums gets to be decided, and who decides that, and how they get to be decided. What are the things that are represented? What are the things that are omitted? And here I talked to Anjani ji about Bihar Museum and the inception of Bihar Museum, how it came about in a poor state like Bihar. A lot of people have asked me questions as to why should a poor state like Bihar have a museum worth 500 crores. And we've already done one edition in Bombay about this museum and the biennial with a lot of stakeholders present over there and talking about museum architecture, gender in museums and all kinds of things, and art biennials and how these are different kinds of formats, and even though borrowed from the Western side, how we have worked together to make it community specific. So yeah, we talked to Anjani ji about museums and their relevance and the future, and of course Bihar. Thank you so much. Anjani ji, you are doing this Museum Biennale 3rd edition 2023. So if you can tell us a little bit about the journey, कि ये conceptualize कैसे किया? What is a Museum Biennale firstly, and how did you come up with this idea?
In fact, when I became Director General of Bihar Museum, I had visited most of the museums in India, and when you go to a museum, you see their star works, like important things they will show you, and then you think that they have 4 or 5 things in their collection. But when I went in depth, I found that each museum, even in India, they have a huge, big history, they have unique collection, and they have a regional dialogue, and that is not getting captured anywhere. So we thought that let us create a platform, and if you want to show a strength of India, there should be a platform where museums of India come, show their important collection and their history, uniqueness, etc. And then we are able to show the total, the strength of India to the world. Because India is knowing, world is knowing only a small part of India. Like, progressive group or Bengal school. But there are beautiful things in Assam, beautiful things in Karnataka. That is not getting captured. So I thought that a platform should be created where we will invite all these museums, they will come, we will provide them physical space. And then we will start a dialogue, and we will also learn from each other, because museums are facing variety of problems. Problem of audience, visitors, financial problems, how to run a museum. Because if you want to run a museum today, and the cost of maintenance and upkeep and acquisition and doing activities, all these things cost. And you cannot charge your visitor a lot.
Yeah.
Because earlier museums were basically jadughars and everything, and people used to pay a small fee and they will see whatever is the collection. But hardly, most of the museums, they never did many activities, and activities cost. So you have to create an audience for that. And so how to create that audience? There are many problems. So we thought that we will discuss these problems. And especially the government supported museums, they are dependent on the budget provided by government. It's not like private museums where you have donors, you can accept gifts and support from private sector. So how to improve situation in those museums? So we invited in our first edition of Museum Biennale, and we did not distinguish between government museum and a private museum, history museum and contemporary museum. We invited all of them. And then we floated this idea that let us do a museum biennale, and where we will bring our strength and everything, and we'll share our experience, solve our problems. So all museums, they participated in that symposium. They all agreed and they said that it will be a great idea and we should do it. So that was behind the start of this museum biennale. Because there are lot many art biennales in the world.
Yeah, that's what my next question was. People are familiar with art biennales, but they're not familiar with this.
Art biennale, who are the stakeholders? The artists, galleries and collectors. So, this is a very small group. Very small group.
Yeah.
Some top galleries, top artists and top collectors. They come in these museum biennales. It's not a public event. It's not for general public. Because they can go and see some of them who pay that cost to visit Venice or Miami. They can go and see, but beyond that they can't do anything.
No.
Because things are so costly and the process is so complicated. So that is for elite. And that is for a select group.
Select kind of group.
Yeah. So we want to do something for the general public.
No, but at Kochi, they say it's for community engagement. And a lot of people like auto drivers, nurses, everybody comes to Kochi Biennale. So that way, they have democratized it. Maybe it's also because of the state. Also, I wanted to come to the image and the character of a state. Like Bihar, for instance, Kerala, for instance. See, these are states that are kind of very different in the trajectory that they have taken in terms of ideology as well.
Yes, I agree. So, in India, you cannot do a biennale like Venice Biennale or Miami and those type of things, because, here you have to involve people and it has to be beneficial to the community, otherwise it will not survive.
It has to be site specific in that sense, yeah.
So it's site specific and it's a collaboration among various stakeholders. So in this situation is different. So this type of art biennales are coming and they are fine. But where museum professionals will talk with each other, where curators will talk, where suppose lot many new museums are coming. So they want to have
understand
how things are done, how museums are created, how
and also changing.
And the most important thing is that definition of museum has changed drastically. Earlier, museum was basically a building and collection. So,
now it's more than that.
Yes, much more than that. Now it's mainly art and culture center where you do activities, people come and participate. You have a building and you have a collection, but you can create events based on your collection.
And many more things actually.
Many more things. And it's not only visual art now in
not
a museum. Not in, so you have to do film show, you have to do performing art, you have to do dramas. You have
to have talks, everything.
I
said, but question, another one was that how does the state, like for example, location, like let's say people always had this certain impression of Bihar, right? For example, Garib state hai. Like even now people make this argument that people in Bihar do not need the state-of-the-art museum, right? And because khane ko nahi hai, Garib state hai, Bimaru state hai, whatever. So against all these arguments, you still have this museum which looks so different, and it's very unlike Bihar. आप बिहार के museum के बाहर चले जाइए, सब कुछ बहुत अलग दिखता है. So in that sense, when you were conceptualizing this museum, how did that come in? Firstly, like what was your idea for a museum, and how did you get interested in a museum? What was it a mandate by the government? Because जादूगर जो पहले था, where we used to go as children, उस समय हम लोग को इतना म्यूजियम का कॉन्सेप्ट भी समझ में नहीं आता था. Only place that you could go to, right? And then suddenly from there you've come here. I mean, it's very different architecture, very different look and feel, very different. Also, it's more of a chameleon kind of a museum. अगर आप उसको historical बनाना चाहते हो, वो बन जाएगा. Contemporary करना चाहते हो, you guys have built something which is so, it can change shape. So how did Bihar come into this? What kind of freedom did it allow you, and how did you think of a museum?
In fact, our real problem was that Patna Museum was a good museum with a beautiful building, with a very nice architecture, So we had a huge collection which was dumped in godowns. So we were planning to extend the space, and when our chief minister visited Patna Museum, when we discussed, then the idea was that we have to create more galleries to accommodate those artifacts, that collection. So at that time we discussed, and our chief minister thought that let us do a new museum. Though we talk always about our great history, culture, heritage, long history, glory, but unfortunately in post-independent India, no new museum with modern infrastructure and with international specification was created. So that was a gap. That was a gap. And when I used to visit museums in different countries, they had huge space for exhibition.
So ये सब कैसे हुआ sir? How did you start visiting museums? Because you were the chief secretary पहले, and then how did you get into this space?
No, so then Chief Minister said, let us make because all these things cannot be displayed the way I wanted to display. So Chief Minister said, because the modern lighting, visitors experience.
और ये किस साल का बात है sir?
That is 2013.
13, हाँ.
13. And then Chief Minister said, if you want all these modern things and international infrastructure, then you create a new museum. So I got a mandate, and Chief Minister asked me, you visit best museums in the world and try to get the best practices.
And उसके पहले sir, you had never got your feet into this art.
No, I was Secretary of Art and Culture twice in Bihar. Bihar, but that time, because it was not happening, nothing was happening in the museum world, and we had all either British museums created during colonial period, or
which had one standard narrative,
and we had some collections of princely estates like Salarjung, City Udaipur Museum, those type of things where collection of a princely estate or a king or somebody was shown in form of a museum. But that was a very traditional way, and you had only collection. No space for activities, no space for bringing exhibition, doing exhibition.
And no space for probably even dialogue, because
dialogue, yes. And it was not a place where, artists, art-loving people, art curators, and they will come, gather and discuss, talk, and take a cup of tea or coffee, and then, those type of things. So that space was not available in India. Neither central government nor any state government created such museum. Some small efforts were made in private sector.
Like Kiran Nadar probably had that space.
Yeah, some people started with industrial houses, business houses. They started to do some they had collection, so they wanted to showcase. And then they created some small museums. But that was not of that scale where you can get a good international exhibition or big event.
No, also, and I think it's a responsibility of the government also to kind of engage.
Yeah, provide that type of infrastructure. So with that in mind, I visited important museums of the world and saw how they do it, how they display, what is the visitors' experience there, how that experience, what is the guided tour, and how they conserve their artifacts, how they display, how they explain, and how they document. So all these things were not here. So we had to bring all those best practices, and with that background we started this museum. But that time, when I started developing the concept, my idea was very clear. If we will make, because this gap is not only in Bihar, this gap is in the
world,
in India, whole of India. So let us do the best.
But it was also something very rebellious in nature, in the sense that it had never been done.
No.
So didn't you ever feel that, oh, maybe this is not okay? It's easier to create something that you already have a model for, rather than going a complete different way and kind of, how do you justify it?
It created a lot of problems. It created a lot of problems because there was no template.
Yeah, that's what.
There was no template. So how to do an international competition for architects?
Yeah.
Or for a concept consultant, or for a fabricator, where to get world-class glasses, those cases to display, the people who can display on international standards. So all these things were a big challenge, and there was no vendor in India.
Yeah.
So we had to start and those type of templates, and then we got these people like concept. So they came as our concept
So
consultant.
how did they react when they came to Bihar, in the sense that how did you pitch this? Like, okay, this is what we are building. What is Bihar? What is this museum going to be like? If you had a certain ambition or certain a definition of this kind of museum that you were going to create.
The most important things we sold very well was, I said that you may have worked in the whole of developed world, but this South Asia, which is more than 1/3 of world population, nobody knows you.
Yeah.
Nobody knows who is Lord Culture Consultant or Maki as an architect. So I said that
a challenge.
So I said that here is a chance that people will see your work, see your architecture or your concept or your fabrication, and where the number is huge. So you are getting your work in a place like India where the number is huge. So many people will see. You have done work in Singapore or New York or Canada.
This is more of a showcase.
So it's a small
a challenge.
So I said, you have to create something where 2,000 people will visit every day.
Yeah.
It's not 200.
Yeah.
Like in most of the countries. Average people that visit is 200, 250, 300. But
also the demographics is very interesting.
Very
you see a lot of people from villages.
And then you have to make in such a way that everybody likes it. Not only intellectuals and
just a common person maybe.
Or very experienced
or they enjoy it at least.
Or museum knowing person. And that was our motto. That our most important objective was that people who come and visit the museum or participate in activity, they should be very happy. They should be excited and happy.
Is coming in a way from what the Bihar ethos is. It has been a kind of a politically socialist state for a long time. So I think this whole common thing, common people, because most of the people, they create these places for intellectual engagement. Here, you see people are really happy, they're taking selfies, whatever it might be, but they're engaging with the space.
What is happening is, in most of the museums, people are getting, it's very high-tech museums that are coming now. With lot of technology, the cutting edge technology.
And they're very intimidating in a way.
Intimidating.
Yeah.
That's why you will find that I have a very clear question, that who are my visitors? For whom we are making this museum?
Who is your visitor?
So our museum is a common man. So 98% is a common man. 2% is researchers, intellectuals, outsiders, foreigners, etc. But so I have to take care of my 98% who is coming and seeing my museum or participating in our activity, our children who are participating. So that you will see from our architecture, Maki, the design is so simple. It's so simple. That was a very nice exhibition, and 26 architects, they in fact participated in this international exhibition contest. And out of that, we shortlisted 5. They were the best in the world. But we went for the one which melts in our milieu.
Yeah.
It should look that it is part of Patna. It should not something like 20.
It's not too intimidating.
20 level building, like a black box, and the whole thing is. Then you have to light the whole thing from inside, and air conditioning and all that. I did not want an intimidating building. So we went for a very simple building that is ground plus 1. My whole museum is ground plus 1. Except that administrative section, which is ground plus 2, because we wanted some space for creating a space for academic activities like courses, etc.
And it's also very, even color schemes are not intimidating.
Not at all, because the cotton steel that he used, showing the strength of India, because in iron metrology, in fact that one, they wanted to show for which India is famous for. So they have used the steel, the cotton steel. But we had there also a very interesting incident. People started asking why we are putting a iron which is rotted. I said, no, it's not a rotted iron. It's a new steel, new type of steel which will weather with time. So it's a new thing. And then ultimately they said, okay, it is fine, but when it will be painted? I said, it will never be painted. It will be painted by the weather. We will not paint it. So they brought many new things, because the concept there was that museum has to teach and provide models for societies to adopt. If you
Yeah.
go and see MoMA, Museum of Metropolitan Museum, so their collections have all those, the first bicycle, first motorcycle, first chair, first
Yeah.
rocking chair,
Yeah.
those type of things.
Yeah.
Because they displayed those things because they thought that society will learn from these
Yeah,
things.
and also the functionality of an object and where
Yes.
you keep that object, I suppose.
Yeah, and importance of that. So this whole thing was designed, that chairs, tables, etc.
Just keeping
and
that
keeping that minimalist type of
minimally,
thing.
so that it also fades into background in terms of what you are displaying.
Yeah, and
Museum
it
should
was
not be
very,
overpowering.
very, very simple.
Yeah. And another thing was that how did the world and Bihar react to this museum when it was built? I mean, there was a lot of curiosity, there was a lot of criticism as well.
Yeah,
In terms of giving Bihar, a poor state, where the government should have spent on health and education.
No, in
museum.
fact, when we started doing it, we had opposition from a very small section of intellectuals. We thought that this money should be spent on roads, schools,
Yeah.
those type of basic infrastructure. So our argument was the government is already taking care of roads,
Yeah.
basic infrastructure, etc. But Bihar, Bihar, our strong point is our history, heritage, culture, glory. And this young generation and their next generation should know what Bihar was. They should feel that pride in their history and culture. That was one part. And second was, from that they should get that strength that if Bihar was like that, when Patliputra was capital of India, that time India was bigger than what it is today.
And we lost ourselves in between, I think.
So, and Mauryan period, and
Gupta
period and all those Pala periods, so art and culture went to zenith. So if we're there 3,000 years ago, why can't we go back? Why can't we become premier state or best state? So that people should know, and we decided that museum is our requirement and it should be done. And Bihar cannot have big industries.
No.
Because we don't have that type of, our land-man ratio is very high and density is very high. So we can always take the route of education, tourism, art, culture. So that soft route we have to take. So with that in mind, we give very high importance to tourism.
But the soft route must have been difficult also, sir, because बीच में बिहारी को तो गाली देने लग गए थे. मतलब I remember when we went to college, तो इतना मजाक उड़ाते थे कि तुम्हारे स्टेट में तो चीटिंग होता है, तुमको कुछ नहीं आता है. There was nothing to take pride in. Basically, I mean, I remember my school friends started going to Delhi and उनका accent बदल जाता था. Nobody was willing to admit that suddenly there's a resurgence of that kind of pride.
नहीं, that time हम लोग का जितना याद है, in the first phase of this government, when Nitish Kumar used to give public lectures and he used to address people, so his last line used to be गर्व से बोलो बिहारी है. उसका रीजन ये था कि बिहार केवल बिहार नहीं बनाया. People from Bihar have gone to Suriname, Trinidad, Mauritius, Fiji, Guyana, and they created countries.
Yeah, and I think migration, which is kind of looked down upon in that sense, is a very vital part of
our diaspora.
History. And you have a diaspora museum as well. So how did that come about? Diaspora है, folk वाला है.
नहीं, so हमारा strong area था. देखो, हमारा folk जो है, वो this whole Mithila belt, Bhagalpur, even Magad. So they have very rich tradition of
and storytelling,
folk art and storytelling. But that was not getting that national and international coverage. So we have a complete one gallery for folk art of Bihar. Then we have a gallery on Bihar diaspora, and we want to make that gallery as a reference center for the world, because many people in different countries wants to know their roots.
And also I think it acknowledges the fact that we are a place where migration happens, and this is how it starts, and that you have a thing about this Bidesiya song. These are very, very subtle elements that you have placed over there.
Yes, and that I want to develop more, and we are getting some support from these countries, and we want to develop that more, and we want to develop that relationship. In fact, I want that people in those countries, and they have become very important people. They became president, prime ministers, everything, big artists and cricket players and everything. So they want to find their roots, they want to know from where their forefathers went, they want to connect. So we want to make this as a center, reference center for.
Yeah. See,
those
also
type.
sir, our like so for example बितेसिया जो form है उसको भी बहुत लोग बाहर नहीं जानते हैं. But like so for example a person from elsewhere will say कि हमारा कुचिपुड़ी है, कोई कुछ बोलेगा, कोई कुछ बोलेगा. बिहार में नहीं बोलते थे लोग. लेकिन I think when the government also tried to recognize this भिखारी ठाकुर वाला जो ट्रेडिशन है लौंडा डांस का, इट्स अ वेरी ब्रेव स्टेप एंड डीजेनरेट हो गया था. विदेशिया वगैरह कहाँ आप लोग, बट बिकॉज ऑफ बिहार म्यूजियम आई थिंक इट्स काइंड ऑफ गेनिंग अगेन दैट.
Yeah. Now there are lot many films on these
and
topics.
People are singing and training.
Yeah, and lot many performance, and it is not only in Bihar; it's even done on national
Outside.
platform.
So that's why we decided, for your event, we decided to kind of put a little bit of Videsiya and Batohiya song and get these like really local dances, because see the problem what happens, and I think Bihar Museum has a great role with the Yakshi, is that you're letting the subaltern speak of the history, and what was happening is that elite always hijack it and they speak on behalf of others, whereas if you have a Yakshi and not a queen or a king or something like that, which is usually the case, you have already kind of collapsed that barrier, and I think that's very kind of important.
Even
was that always the idea, or how did you choose Didarganj ka Yakshi for your?
No, that is a most beautiful sculpture in India. There is no to deny, and also to
very layered
support that argument, what we did, because we did huge exhibition on women and deity, and that was from our reserve collection. We wanted to prove to the world that this concept of women empowerment is not Western
new
and modern.
Yeah, it's not the Western gaze.
It's nothing very recent. Because we wanted to show through our collection, which is very old, 3,000 years, that even the common women were empowered, powerful, and they were playing very important role in the society.
And the body language is very interesting.
And they were respected. And you have more deities than gods.
Yeah, that is true. And I mean, in today's day and age, to even bring that out, I think it's very. See, there's also always this problem of the Western gaze. See, we have been oppressed by this Western gaze. I think Bihar Museum actually resists that gaze and gives that gaze back. It's a gaze of opposition. Like that bell hooks theory of this oppositional gaze. Because when the Western gaze happens, you're like, अच्छा नहीं, यहाँ पे ये नहीं हो सकता है, and you build it.
Yes.
And you then say that, okay, now you come to us rather than us going to you.
That is so true that most of these big museums of the world, now they are visiting our museum. And they're getting shocked. I said, don't get shocked. Get surprised.
Yeah.
So, yes, how can this be?
That's the gaze, no? They can't expect.
So when I used to make a presentation on our museum in important museums of the world, so mostly they will say, where is this Bihar? Then I had to explain it is between Delhi and Kolkata. Delhi and Kolkata. So the funny part was they were knowing Patliputra.
But they were not doing it.
They were not knowing Patna and Bihar, where it is. And it's very important. Then I started talking about our history, that Patliputra, Mauryan Empire and everything. And the prosperity, Aryabhat, Nalanda.
And even now, sir, like Bihar has held its own, despite everything. We had a very resistant culture in that sense.
That has come out very nicely in Subodh Gupta's one sculpture.
The yantra.
No, that cactus he made.
Oh, yeah.
So he says that in spite of all odds,
we grow.
All odds, we will grow and we will flower.
Yeah.
Because that cactus is giving you flower.
Yeah,
that is giving you flower.
And it's a resistant thing. It survives.
Yeah.
It's a survivor.
It survives.
It survives. And like how in Bihar, a lot of things, our ethos has survived. Yes. Despite even if you now go in Bihar, and not to say anything, but see, we still have that mixed culture. And that we see in the Bihar Museum as well, when Momita today was explaining, there is no religion attached to Yakshi, which is such a beautiful thing. The Yakshi is just a Yakshi.
Here in our museum, the one thing, approach is not elitist, it's not very academic. It's a concept of storytelling. So you will see a timeline. So timeline has color codes. So if you are moving in those galleries, if you see the wall, you will know which era you are.
Yeah.
So
it's a very immersive kind
of. And then it's a consequential, and you will see the whole story. And it's very easy without a guide or without an expert. You will understand everything.
Roam around, and it's not too much text also, so that you get a little bit whatever bogged down. I think it's very simply done. Also, I think it opens the room for interpretation, which a lot of places don't allow, because you already tell so much to the people to think कि अपना क्या सोचेंगे वो फिर. Like even if you look at the Yakshi statue, where you have only done like, let's say, one paragraph of a story how she was found in Didarganj, beyond that you have not said much.
Yes.
So a Yakshi is open to interpretation.
No, in fact, we are bringing our children, and they are interesting exercises. That one hand is broken, so we are saying that you imagine what was in that hand.
Yeah.
So you get a beautiful response.
Yeah.
Somebody is putting something, somebody is putting something.
And museum are places of imagination as
yeah,
well.
so the imagination.
Yeah.
And especially in my children's section, because our population, 50% of population is below 25.
Yeah.
So it's a very young population, youngest population in India. So we it's a little more focused on children and younger people. That section is very interesting in the sense because there is nothing called don't. Here it is please experience, please feel, please explore, please do, please touch.
So how did you come up with these kinds of things?
Please touch. Because, that was a big...
because you were a bureaucrat, not really.
That was a big shock when I used to visit, big museums. You always have don't.
Yeah, don't touch this, don't do
touch.
this.
And there is a distance you have to maintain and all that. Here in children's section, we wanted children to play and experience and feel. So the only problem was you have to select the material which is hardy, sturdy.
Yeah, and sturdy,
Sturdy and hardy. And we don't mind if something happens, a small thing. So that can be. But children feel...
But at least you are encouraging.
Yeah, they feel so happy.
Yeah.
We have one very interesting thing because Bihar has a very rich archaeology also. Lot of excavation. So one section tells you how excavation is carried out. So there is a whole exercise and you are supposed to participate in that exercise.
Yeah. See, there's a lot of interesting things. I think that whole thing of point minting. Also, I thought that, you have that Pali script where your name can come, right? I think that's also kind of resuscitating a language. Like also telling people that there was a language like this. And because there's a lot of language stuff, debate and all that always goes on. So I think it's all very done, very interesting.
And they get so excited that those few things are very crowded where you can get your name in Pali or in Urdu. So they get very happy. They go with two small things and they keep it as a souvenir.
Museums are also places of memorization. So you're giving something that they can remember it later.
Yes.
So as I said, also another thing was that I wanted to ask you, see, museums can be many things. And obviously we are working with you on this innovative museum concept as well. I mean, Bihar Museum is also a very imaginative space. You can do a lot with that space, within the space, outside the space, however. Museums are also very political in nature. It's a place where conversations can happen, dialogues can happen, a lot of questioning can happen, a lot of resistance also can happen. How do you view Bihar Museum in current political and historical era, and where does it stand? What does it mean?
No, we welcome different, the difference of views are welcome and should be welcome because, that helps you. Like, the first thing I read, in Google, if you see everybody who visits, most of the people, they give you some comments.
Feedback.
And then they say what pictures they took, how long they stayed.
All
those things are captured because you carry a mobile, so we know everything. So what pictures you took, how long you stayed, what is your comment and all that. So that is a great feedback. That comes in a huge number. So they tell you that you should open longer period, this should happen, that corner is not that clean. So I am not getting access to that work. So those type of feedback instead of that typical old bureaucratic way of finding in a complicated manner. Now people are directly telling you.
And you are accepting it as well.
And we are accepting. Like I'll give you one example. Like our museum was closed like any other museum in India at 5 o'clock. So that is a typical, I don't know why and how it happened. Maybe because of variety of
Because
reasons.
maybe it was a standardized thing.
So 5 o'clock, so everywhere it closes. So I had a huge pressure. They said that summer season when its sun is so hot we cannot go out after 4. If you close at 5 we don't have time. So I was compelled to extend it to 7 o'clock. So now the whole children's section, multipurpose hall, cafeteria, shop, open air theatre, everything is open till 7. So now if you enter even at 4 o'clock, so 1 hour you see the history section and the rest time you can spend in these areas. And even my cafeteria, which specializes on Bihari cuisine, is open till 9:30.
Yeah.
Unless I open in the evening, it
Yeah.
does not become a real culture center.
No, not at all. Because people want to hang out in the evening.
Hang
and
out,
for the
yes.
longest time, Bihar didn't have spaces for
Such place.
evening
Yeah.
hangout. When we were growing up, nothing of that sort.
So people can come.
People can. Now, like you are the director, you are doing all kinds of things, and obviously now you know everything, and you've got all kinds of things, and you engage a lot with people, and you have a vision. Vision is very important. Then who do you delegate this responsibility to, and how it is a challenge now for you?
We are
Because Bihar still has that reputation. लोग आना नहीं चाहेंगे, रहना नहीं चाहेंगे यहाँ पे.
No, so I always believe, what you have to do with what is available. You cannot wish for the best, and still, you cannot get that type of. I tried to get few people with international experience. Even if he or she will agree, his family will not. Because they want to nightlife of New York or Singapore.
Or whatever.
So of course we cannot provide that type of nightlife. And
plus it's a prohibition state.
so no, not many things. But whatever is available you can develop in a world-class team. But one problem was that you have to give them exposure. They should go and see other places. They should see how things are happening.
And you have many young curators who are quite...
So that's why my young team, and I am also giving them a responsibility to curate.
Yeah, I like Vishy had just curated
Vishy
that.
did one, very young one. She's not even a curator, she's a curatorial associate. So she did curated one exhibition.
And she studied, I think, something completely different, and then got selected and came here and kind of now.
Yes, all these people are getting chance to curate.
And to enter that elite space which was considered so closed.
And I am also encouraging, if they get chance to visit different museums,
you send them.
Participate in different things, you have to allow them. Unless they see.
How will they learn?
Because from books you cannot learn all these things. Unless you see how really that happens, then only you can.
So sir, what is your vision now that you have started this Museum Biennale, which is one of its kind? Firstly, there's no concept like this any which way. And all our concepts have been borrowed. Like a Biennale is also a borrowed concept in India, right? And then art fair, all of these are Western concepts that were borrowed. Yours is a mix of a Western thing, but you've completely changed it around to kind of do a Museum Biennale, because nobody does this. So
that nobody did, and I'm surprised why nobody in the world did Museum Biennale. Because these museums are so old, some 300 years for Louvre and so many museums, big ones, and Art Biennale is happening for last 200 years. It's very old, but nobody thought for Museum Biennale. But I thought that museum are the places. I assume that in future museum will play a very important role in the society, and it is high time that we learn from each other. That is one. And second, they have, everybody has something, different, extraordinary. That should. And then how at one place you can tell the world that, see, this is India. Otherwise, what is happening? You are going to one museum
and showing
or participating or exhibiting or doing whatever. But at one platform, you can see the whole India, and you can see, our G20 exhibition.
Yeah, I was going to come to that.
Yeah. So we are getting one artwork from 28 countries, one artist and one artwork. So each country has selected one artist and they will come with one artwork. So you have 28 of them. Then I am putting that against 20 senior artists of India. So there is a dialogue. There is a dialogue. So these 20 will learn from those 28. And those 28, because all those artists are participating, so they will learn from these 20. And they will know the strength of India. It's not exhibition of one person. Maybe very important, but it's not one person. They will see the whole of India. And these 20 artists have been selected from all parts of India, senior artists, and recognized.
They have been given a theme, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam.
Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. One world and one family, one future.
Which is very important in today's day and age. And then another thing I wanted to ask was, how does a Museum Biennale work? So basically you invite all these museums for dialogues and exchange of ideas. At one point, let's say you have 20 museums. So how do they display? Because you can't bring a whole museum here. So how does that work?
Now it is done in a hybrid manner. 70% is physical, 30% is virtual.
Okay.
If you can bring a physical exhibition from your museum, you are very welcome. we will provide you a space and everything,
Huh.
and provide all hospitality and whatever is required, like you're taking care of your cost of transportation, insurance,
And conservation and all of that.
insurance, etc. That is one way. That is the physical part. Second part is, if you cannot come, then you can give a virtual tour of your museum.
But how do they do that?
They do it through Zoom and all these.
So Zoom will be on a big screen. And
Yeah, there will be many screens and, at different
public is allowed to.
The people are allowed and they will see.
Anyone
Anyone
can come, and anyone can attend these discussions as well.
Yeah. They all are welcome. And then that virtual manner they can showcase the important artifacts of their museum. So, but I also want, the people should physically come, meet, share, gather, because that is completely different.
Also in a digital world, that is something that we are losing out on. I mean, people don't believe in meeting. The whole way the human interaction happens is changing very fast. So I think that's very important to physically be there.
So I am a strong believer that major component has to be physical. Though we also cannot, resist changes that is happening. So this is a mix of physical and virtual. So many museums, like Metropolitan Museum, is giving us a tour of a very important exhibition that they are organizing on tree and serpent, which is a very big exhibition. So sitting in Patna or India, everybody can see the whole exhibition.
Can see it. And then another thing was that a lot of people were talking about this and said, why will people go to Patna during the G20 or whatever when people are coming? I mean, people just come to Delhi or Bombay or whatever, Delhi being the main cultural quote-unquote center. Why would anyone come to Bihar? And does Bihar have that kind of infrastructure to even host, maybe? So
no, we have, as on today, in fact, we should not boast, but it's a fact that we have a huge convention complex with the auditorium of 5,000 capacity. We have auditorium with 800, 2,000, 300. So you have a campus where you have all these auditoriums, and you have a food court, you have, it's on the river Ganges, beautiful location, and you can do 10 activities in parallel.
Okay.
So, and you can bring 10,000 people, and like, in foreign countries, you will see this type of infrastructure. So, we have that infrastructure, though we have not been able to attract that type of activity. But Bihar don't come only for Patna and all that. We have Rajgir, we have Nalanda, we have Bodh Gaya. For 6, we have this Guru Gobind Singh's huge Harmandir Takht Sahib. You have Jain, very important things. So, Bihar is one place where, the most important thing of different religion exists. So,
and also very beautiful architecture.
Yeah. So, come with, 3-4 days with a composite plan and do all this. Participate in this, and that will transport you back. Nalanda University, can you imagine so many years ago, 10,000 people from the world they used to come to. They were studying there. 10,000 people. Nobody can think which university has 10,000 people residential.
In that time.
That time. So, Bikramshila, Nalanda and all that. So, we are saying, or Vaisali, where we got these relics of Buddha, ashes. So, we have many things.
You have a lot to offer.
Many things, lot to offer. But you have to come little planned. We want that people should do in a relaxed manner.
Not really like rushed.
Of course, it's not a great nightlife or great metropolitan. So that, if you have that in mind, it's not the right place. But if you are coming for real art and culture, heritage,
and no distractions.
Then this is
this is a good place.
This is a very good place.
And then another thing I wanted to ask was coming to your own life. See, you also built a museum after all. I mean, it's coming full circle. You got involved in 2013, 2023. You already have a Himmat Shah Museum in the place that you bought as a retirement place wherever you go. So I just wanted to ask, how did that happen? Like your whole house is full of artworks, everything. I mean, you kind of also learned as you went along.
No, in fact, my wife had an interest in folk art. And she was supporting, folk artists like, Mithila painters, Tikli painters, Apli, Sujni workers, those type of people, to help them to get good market. So that was happening, but I didn't have interest in art. I developed interest in art only after I was made nodal officer for Bihar Museum.
And how did you become the nodal officer? How did
No,
that happen?
CM somehow had confidence in me, and he thought that he declared me nodal officer irrespective of my posting. So even if I become anything, I'll continue to be nodal officer. Like I became principal secretary to chief minister, I became chief secretary of the state, but I continued as nodal officer. So that was the confidence he reposed on me. Then I had to deliver. So when I started visiting museums and all senior artists, one good thing was that we got a huge support from art fraternity of India. And because nothing great was happening in different states, so I got support from different artists from different states and institutions related to art. So everybody wanted Bihar Museum to succeed because they wanted it to become a role model, so that they can create pressure in different states, their own state, and they can say Bihar can have it.
And at least you formed a template for people to follow.
So why can't they have it? So that was a good thing. So during that process, all these senior artists, big artists started coming to Bihar, and we also invited many of them because we wanted to take their input. So during that process, I started getting artworks.
And you started looking at...
And because many senior artists started staying with me in my house. In fact, 2 of our bedrooms were reserved for the artists, visiting artists. All senior artists visited. And then they brought some artwork, they did some artwork here. Slowly I started collecting, and then I spent some money. And I am grateful to all these senior artists. If buying something, so I used to give them a blank check.
And they would
because I'll say I don't know now what real value of your work. So, but nobody in India, no senior artist put more than 1 lakh rupees.
Okay, that's
that respect they gave me. So I was so my cost of collection was not very high. Very high, and many things came as gift, and they did it in my house.
And so you thought of building your own.
So I thought that I have now 400 artwork, both
400.
Wow. Painting, sculpture, and other things. So I thought because I have got from the whole of India, so let us do a museum. So when I retired, I had to make my own house. So that house was designed as a museum with 2 bedrooms. So the concept was that we will live in museum.
You already live in a museum. This is also a museum.
So because it will be a museum for public. People can come and see and enjoy, but we live in that museum. So with that concept, we did that museum, and we were very close to Himmat Shah. He used to come.
I met him here actually.
Very frequently, and he somehow he had a great affection and love for Bihar. So I named my museum on his name,
and the other one is like Upper Nakor.
Then I thought, the one problem I saw, because my wife is a great patronizer for artists. So in our outhouses, this government house has many outhouses. So she used to give that space to poor artists who cannot afford a house and accommodation in Patna. So all these art college students started living in our campus. Then I thought that all these people face, when they pass out or do a BFA or MFA, they don't get a job or start making money or start earning a lot. So they want a support. They wanted a space where they can work peacefully in a relaxed manner. So I had a small piece of land. So I developed that as an art center. A art center where people can come and
stay for
some time, work. They can come in group, they can work individually in a residential facility and all that. So with that, we started with the art center.
And you also have a great cactus collection. How did that happen? I mean, everybody who knows you knows that.
Plant collection is much higher,
that's also a museum in itself.
Much better than my art collection. Art collection is only 10-12-year-old. My plant collection is 30-year-old.
30 years old. And you have 1.5 lakh.
This is in fact, I have during 30-35 years, I collected plants from all over the world. I have 4,000 species of plants.
4,000. So how did you get into this plant collection? Was it like a childhood thing or?
No. I started with fighting with my wife because in my early period, she wanted a nice garden and all that, flowers and garden. But I was more interested in vegetable and fruits because I thought, that will save money.
Yeah.
So, but when I realized that it is going to stay and that gardening and flowers will stay, then I thought, let us take it to a logical end.
Yeah.
So I thought if it has to happen, then let us become the best collection in India. And then we started collecting from all over there. But my job was a great help.
Because you would travel. And
because, you could not, normally a person who goes to a country pays for everything. But I used to go for different government activities, but I'll spend some time on plant collection.
Yeah, in a nursery.
So I was only paying for cost of plant. I was not paying for my travel and accommodation, transport, etc. So that way I was able, from my salary and my wife's salary, quite a good collection. Then once you have name in the world, then exchange starts.
Yeah.
If you have something very rare, I have something very rare, so we will exchange. So now 80% plant is, it's exchange from different collectors in the world, and slowly develop into a very huge collection. And now I have something like 5-6 lakh.
5-6 lakhs?
Plants.
Plant here and like in your new home in Nedanapur, right?
Yes. In my.
So and is it difficult to take care of them? Like, I mean, you told me once I had visited. You spend a lot of time with the plants also.
Plants are living things, so they need care. Like human needs care. They give you babies. You have to take care. They get disease. They have a problem. They are sick. So it's like a human, and but I tell you, it's a great stress buster.
It is.
Because if you take a round, for half an hour, your stress goes. That is one. And number two, it's always, you get excitement because some new babies are coming, new flowers are coming,
happening.
New leaves are coming. So that gives you completely different excitement, and that refreshes you. So I am very happy for this hobby that I have now. And now I am known more for my plants than for my art or in the world.
You're also known for your friendship with artists, actually. Like, for instance, the last thing I wanted to ask you before this finishes is like this thing for the artist who I also met. I mean, I've known him for many years now, Rajat Ghosh. You always talk about him with much fondness, and he's a complete, like, strange kind of artist who is so reclusive. And I've been to his house, but I always come in, and you did his retrospective last year. So there's a very nice relationship there. Like you get him, he probably keeps lingering, and his work is there in the museum. And you've also chosen him as one of the G20 artists amongst a bunch of very elitist artists. Probably, I don't know who. I mean, I'm sure it's your suggestion to include him.
Yes. No, in fact, in Bihar, from the artists from Bihar, I find him very original artist. Number one, very talented artist, but he's not a very presentable commercial artist.
Yeah, he's not. He's a true artist.
He's a very true artist, and he's in fact in Bihar, in Patna, he is one artist. The maximum number of his works are in public places.
Yeah.
Public places. He's very talented and everything. But he does not know the art market is completely commercial and it's very cutthroat type of
and he's
thing.
not the one to project himself like.
He's not.
But you got him.
I rate him one of the best from Bihar. That Bihar has produced. I rate him very, very high. His work, if you see, especially his terracottas, they are out of blue.
And storytelling is amazing. The kind of research he puts in, the kind of folk tales that he weaves into, like that Raja Sailesh and all these things that he has kind of.
He does not get influenced by the market, what will sell and what will not sell.
So how did you understand that?
He will do only what he feels which is right.
Yeah.
In fact, when I met him, he came with many of his drawings. And he told me, सब इस तरह किया से कुछ फायदा नहीं है. तो मैंने बोला कि ठीक है, मैं तुम्हारा किताब निकाल देता हूँ. That time I was chief secretary. I asked one university to publish that book. At least that should be preserved.
Yeah, yeah.
So he had 800 drawings. So a book was published. And then we said, especially, public places. Unless you put the artwork in public places, lot many people will not see.
Not see, yeah.
In personal collection,
Yeah.
private museums, only very few people will see. So I thought that let his work be.
Yeah, and you chose him of all the options that were available to you.
Yeah, I chose him. And I gave him very, very, very high regard. Only thing is little less predictable and he's not very.
But that's the beautiful part. You were telling us a story of his painting that kept lying and he kept he left it.
Yeah.
But and you have his work here
No, in fact,
your museum.
When he did that painting, it was lying in one of the side rooms for 2 years. I was not interested. I said, it's all torn and everything, very bad shape. Then I said that you take it back. Then he said, no. Then he gave it to a framer. I said that he will come for a month every day and do that, work on those collages. And he did that collage. Then again he brought it, covered with a plastic. I said, how it can be displayed? It's a pathetic condition. Then some big curator from Singapore came, he saw that work and he was surprised. And he said, it's a great work, how you got it? I said, but I'm not...
Yeah, I never thought it was...
So he said, no, sir, it is the best. And I said, nobody is ready to frame this. It's so fragile.
Yeah.
And it has been done in 10 years.
Yeah.
Something 8 years before, 4 years before and all that. So he said that, no, sir, it can be pasted properly and it can become one painting. But he can deliver. And that is great painting.
No, also like the way you have helped him also and kind of it's also
but he's very original.
He's very original.
Very original.
Yeah.
He's very original, very hardworking and very, very, very focused.
And he actually means, he's only focused on art. He's not focused on anything else. But he's difficult to kind of, because he's moody.
He's very moody, and he cannot be, the type of world we have now, he's not
a survivor in that kind of world.
So it's difficult for that type of person.
So, but sir, when you leave the museum, then what happens to Mr. Rajat Ghosh then?
No, now he has got a name and he's displayed at 10 places in Patna. You cannot ignore him.
No.
He cannot be...
But the world is good at ignoring
him. He cannot be ignored and...
Yeah, no, I think now, like last time when I met him at the Literature Festival, he was doing very happy because he only told me, Chinky, mera catalog leke jao, dekho, ho gaya. And that's one of the most beautiful friendships that has, I have seen in terms of all the artists that you've been with. Himmat Shah and him, because you celebrate his birthday at the Bihar Museum, and that's one of your traditions.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you and good luck.